Chris, it's Michael, Don, and Peter. How you doing?
Hi, guys. How you doing? How's everyone going, all right?
Everything's great.
Good.
So now your old nemesis on the court will be your nemesis on the sidelines. What do you think about Georgetown hiring Patrick Ewing?
I think it's amazing. I think it's a great move. Obviously, it's a great story, a lot of nostalgia, but more importantly, for Georgetown, they're getting a great guy, great coach, put his dues in. He's doing it for the right reasons. And, Michael, I think it's really good for the Big East. It makes you raise your level. You know, I mean, Patrick did that as a player. When he went to Georgetown out of high school, it raised the intensity in the Big East and took it to new heights, and I think he'll have a similar impact as a coach.
Chris, I asked him about the challenge of recruiting, and Are you surprised to hear him say he doesn't think it's as hard as people make it out to be?
No, look, I wouldn't underestimate it. You know, when you get into new jobs, we all make transitions in life, right? And probably the most important thing you do is to understand there's a lot of things you just don't know. So I think Patrick understands that. But the thing that is underestimated in the NBA is you do a lot of recruiting, whether people know it or not. As a GM, of course, now you see the recruiting that goes on in free agency, which is somewhat new, but it's a real element in the NBA. And as a coach, pretty much every single day, you're selling your game plan, you're selling your scouting reports, your personnel stuff. So there's a lot of stuff that does correlate from the NBA to college, and there's also a lot of stuff that he has to learn. And but he'll do fine. Patrick is a really smart guy. He's got an engaging personality, and like I said, he's a hard worker. So all that'll translate. And the subtle differences he'll pick up. And then the most important thing is getting people around him, his staff, that has some experience in those areas. And I know he'll do a great job with that.
Talking to the great Chris Mullin, Hall of Fame. Chris Mullin, great player at St. John's. Chris, we had Seth Greenberg on during the tournament when Patrick got hired, and he said, what people that make the transition from the NBA to college don't understand is that you're never off. You're recruiting, you're on the road, you're dealing with donors, you're talking with the facilities, all the operations of the school. He goes, you're doing something all the time. It's almost a 24-hour-a-day job. Have you found that to be true?
Yeah, and again, Mike, I want to be respectful to both sides, but it's like that in the NBA also.
Really?
So, yeah, no question. No question. There might be some downtime for the coaches, but they're always looking at the next roster move, the next scouting report. And if you're in the playoffs, you go to May, June, you go right into free agency, right into summer league. Free agency never stops until a roster, is set for training camp, and then you look at the trade. So it's very similar. And look, I'm not taking away from, 24/7. It sounds good. But you know what? Part of that is a lifestyle choice. You can only work but so much. So if you're going 24/7, I'm going to say probably not. That sounds good. You're probably not. And if you are, you probably shouldn't. You should get a rest because you're probably not working on all cylinders.
So you actually have time to work on your tan then?
Can't you tell?
What was the biggest surprise for you, though? I mean, was there anything about the job, because you had spent your professional life, obviously, in the NBA, was there anything about the job that took you by surprise that you didn't expect, that Patrick can also expect to be surprised by?
I can't say any one thing, because, Mike, this is the biggest thing to me. Over the last 10 years, the NBA has changed, right? It's gotten younger. So what happens is now, when I was a GM at the Warriors, I drafted Monte Ellis out of high school, and that summer, I helped him get a driver's license. I helped him find a place to live, talked to him about off-the-court responsibility. So a lot of the same things that we do are already happening in the NBA. So, I was telling someone today at the Washington Post, when Patrick and I left school, 30 years ago, we stayed school 4 years, and we walked into the NBA. We walked in a locker room full of men. It's not the case anymore. It's just not. It's just that's changed. And in time, when we played, there was no shot clock. There was no three-point line. So the similarities have become closer. Now, they're not identical. I'm not saying that at all. But if you're around the game long enough, the boosters could be minority owners. The president of the school could be the GM. There's similarities enough where, you know, you got a good feel for people and you got experience, you're going to figure that stuff out.
Now, the one big difference, I would think, Chris, between the NBA and college is defining success. In the NBA, there's 30 teams. All right, go out, win a championship. Mm-hmm. What is defining success for a college program, and specifically St. John's?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing is you realize where are you when you step in there, right? Mm-hmm. What kind of roster do you inherit? And then, of course, you just whatever that is. Each school is going to be different, and then you improve each and every year. Part of that's getting better players. Everyone the catchphrase is culture, but to me is getting the right people and having them succeed in their respective responsibilities. So that's the other thing too. The off season, which this month we do a little bit of training with the guys. We set it up like the NBA. We do our individual skill work. They get in the weight room, and then they do their recovery. So like I said, the basketball stuff is very similar. The good thing about college now, the academic is a whole separate arm. The coaches are really not directly involved with that, of course, as far as them being responsible, but there's a whole section of academic advisors, their tutors, that's all kind of controlled by the university.